Hello, everyone. I could say someone now because I had a viewer. Big news in my world anyway. 1 view on all my videos, and that comes as a surprise to me. In fact, it was when I was editing the video for last week, so it happened last week. We're celebrating a little bit late, and to celebrate I brought some of this and some of this, so you know it's going to be a decent show this week, hopefully. The one show, Potato Land here, that I suppose I'm in the front runner. I'm one of the front runners in terms of topics which you come up with off the top of your head. So a little bit excited about that. Hello, welcome. Good to have you. Can't believe we have a viewer. And I suppose you already know how I'm celebrating. Let's get into it. Already, first things first, I don't want to look at my notes because, as I just stated, trying to be a front runner here. So I will just go off the, in the spur of the moment, or however you say all this, however you string sentences together. My attire. Look at me. If you can't see, well, you know now, because I'm explaining. I'm wearing 2 shirts, a shirt over, like a button down. It's unbuttoned, but casually wearing a new shirt this week. And kind of excited about it. On second attempt, you know, you go to the changing room. And on second try, this shirt is definitely a little tight. But hey, I've been getting fat through this, this whole process of stay-at-home order stuff. So hopefully that pans out wonderfully. I try and also keep my chin down so you don't see my double chin or whatever's happening there. And I'd like to think that I'm mostly getting better and better at it. Maybe it's better if you keep the camera high and never see it. But then, like, if I can, the Joe Rogan podcast, he's got the cameras up. Right? Not down. #1 podcast in the world, even though he's moved to Spotify. Here's what I heard this week. And trying to stay energetic here as well, because I just listened to last week's episode. And while there is meat material in there, sparingly or sparsely, again, whatever the word is, that reminds me we've got to talk about messing up some words. And did I lose my train of thought on last week? I think I lost my train of thought on one thing. Yeah, we'll get to that as well. Let me just try and do this off the dome here, right? So, camera up high. Where were we? So the statistics on apparently engagements after moving to Spotify for the guy, the head honcho, my daddy, Joe Rogan, he's come down a bit on how many people get feedback or engagements when it comes to directly relating to their career after doing the show, the podcast, JRE. I still feel like I'm cool enough to where it's a little bit silly to be saying JRE. But anyway, his engagements have come down a little bit from Spotify, and you can kind of hear him, advertising for the first time after his YouTube clips have come out since moving to Spotify. At the end of the clip, he's got this, you know, this move over to Spotify. What do you call that? Audio clip tagged at the end of these videos. Mind me in the terms I use, but he needs everybody to move over to Spotify, kind of like the Howard Stern thing. all over again. Is he getting paid too much? I don't think Howard was getting paid enough, and I don't think he's getting paid enough, honestly. But yeah, apparently through another comedian that I watched on the internet, he's getting about half as much engagements from going on the show. So maybe it's not viewed as much, but hopefully it's just as popular as it should be, right? I mean, maybe at some point you're not getting many new listeners, or it evens out or something, and then you decide to make a big move. I know a lot of his decision just by what I figure I know from the guy, and got into an argument with a person I was seeing a long time ago about how much you know somebody who does a podcast. I told her, listen, I've probably, figuratively speaking, if that's the right term, sat next to the guy for 10,000 hours or so, listening to so much of that podcast. Love you, Joe. Mwah. So I reckon I know him. I know him to an extent, for sure. And, you know, I'd love to cover, actually, now that we're talking about it and putting it in context here, why I think Bill Burr could be more interesting. And that's just because Joe's not sharing. I'm going to use last names if I haven't met these guys. That shall not be a mistake I continue to do. Last week I said Bobby as if I knew who Bobby Lee was. Not the case at all. I only know people that are on my social media, and that means I met them, and therefore I'm following you, or we are, you know, following each other, friends, or what have you. But Bill Burr will talk about things like his children and his wife, and it's just that it's on more regular occasion. I know Joe Rogan talks about it, maybe with his closer pals or his fellow fathers that are on the show that he knows well or well enough, but it seems like Bill talks about it on a more regular basis, which makes you feel like you get to know the guy. And while we're at it, I might as well say, if you want to get to know somebody, the more you know about their closest people in their life, the more you're entangled in a relationship with them, right? So I don't know, it's a simulated relationship, watching these podcasts and all that stuff, but you know that. Moving on, I can give you the statistics that I heard, which would be maybe possibly fun for you. The comedian on the podcast that I was listening to was Mark Normand, and I don't know where he does his research, but he said something like around 3 million engagements after you do his show, ever since Spotify has come down to 1.5 or something like that. I might not have those numbers exact, but it's 3 to 1.5 or something, which is fine. Maybe it's a little more than 3. I don't remember. Fine and dandy. It's plenty of engagements. Anybody who goes on his show is definitely more popular afterwards, right? How are we? I wanted to start out with how am I doing? This extra energy I'm bringing this week, coming off of last week, is because I did some work. I actually got some work done, which is nice. Sort of, I like to say busting my ass, but I don't want to overuse it. Sort of working every day, acquiring that money. Not going to use any slang here because I'm not going to pretend to be from a different culture in any way whatsoever. But acquiring that moolah and makes you feel better, doesn't it? Right? Okay, I'm a little bit slow on the, maybe I should ask you how you're doing. That always makes me feel more comfortable, even if I'm only talking to possibly one person. Now, if robots are part of you getting views, then it's still possibly no one. And we remember that I have if you've listened to previous shows, we remember that I have one subscriber, but that's possibly me. So I don't know. Oh, and I got a comment as well, but that should not be brought up because I was like, wait, why comment with no views on this video? Now, the view came from a video a few episodes back. In fact, I think it was the one that I did that was an hour long. So it's like, what do I got to do? You know, I mean, trying to keep these short for my sake, but also mainly for your sake. How can I listen to my voice for 15 minutes? Certainly not able to keep this energy level up. And that's been proven 20 or so times over. But also still loving getting into chill mode. So how are you? I got all my fingers and toes. I'm alive, and I'm hoping the same is with you. I know we've had some big tragedies in the news, and that's people pointing weapons at multiple people and firing, and all that stuff gets in the national media. In fact, it's probably global, since everybody seems to be paying attention to what's happening in the US of A. But I hope that's not you. Oh boy, that sounds awful and dark. I hope we're all doing okay, getting by. We'll talk more about that because I don't plan to jump into something like that on a sort of a, how do you say, on a light note, without discussing maybe what we can do about it or what would help. And I know all these, I know the conversation is always had and stuff. Gosh, I would not want to start my podcast or my show talking about garbage that is in the news that does affect people, whether it's directly or indirectly, nationwide, if not worldwide. I'd hate to talk about something so dark so soon. Let's take a sip. We're gonna, pardon me stuttering or having trouble getting words out. We need a silent moment just so that I can acknowledge that silent moments are allowed on this show. And we'll get back into it. Okay. Boy, do I really want to talk about that right now. While we're on it, and so I don't forget, it should probably be mentioned that a lot of these folks are white, and so it'd be my duty to have an opinion or try and come up with an idea. And I think the same thing as probably many of you think. It's, oh, well, I should probably mention the good old Joe Rogan once more here, because he has pointed out that a lot of them are on antidepressants. And I completely agree. How could you not, right? So they're white, they're on SSRIs or something or the other, and I should probably look that up since I never really use that word publicly. And they're probably not getting laid, right? So there's a Vegas shooter, and I think he had a girlfriend a little while back, and there are probably examples of people that are getting laid. Once again, serving the penis. If you've watched or listened to the last episode. But for the most part, these are, oh, what is the word? I listen to enough Tigger Belly to know this term. Let's see, and if I can think of it, if I could just think of it, incels. Most of them are incels, and while they should be, it would probably be better for society if they were in a cell. before all this stuff happens. And by that, I mean maybe go to their mental health counselor. I know we have billboards here in LA that are like, you know, let's see if I can remember this. Sueño? Something about, I'm trying to remember the billboard in Spanish right now, but basically your mental health is important. La salud. Es importante. I'm not sure exactly what they say, and I know that's wrong, but it goes something like that. Yeah, so if you want to, go ahead and listen to my podcast show here, or call your local mental health agency. There are suicide hotlines and stuff like that, where I think people will just listen to you, which is nice. So if you need to do it, I won't look down upon you. I'm certainly a person that would call, or should, or maybe could. But if I'm honest, I see enough of just, by diving into social media, I see enough of people that are just out there, old, young, but I suppose for argument's sake, a lot of people just alive, right? So you get older. I meant to say old, but I don't really want to, there shouldn't necessarily be a difference. I see a lot of people that are alive and are willing to record themselves for the public. I mean, how ridiculous is that, right? So even if it's in song, and it's not, you know, that they're showing their face publicly, or their voice or their opinions necessarily, they're out there. There's enough people, if you just dive into social media, you can get a lot of good examples of reasons to just be alive, you know? Sorry, I'm just trying to click off of something right now. Okay, great. You know, it's gross. It's the worst kind of a thing, right? White people seem to be fighting for, well, whether they know it or not, getting laid. Something happened where somewhere in the 2010s and later, something changed, and I think it has something to do with nerfing the world, which is again referring back to my favorite podcast. I'm going to say it, even though I don't watch necessarily. Well, I don't necessarily tune in much anymore, if that's okay to say. But Big Papa JR, don't want to just, you know, oversaturate his name during this one show, but he's mentioned nerfing the world, and I don't think it has I think it has its downsides, and white people are freaking out, and that's what it seems to be. It seems to be that they just need a couple triggers, right? Did not mean to, again, try and use some sly phrasing to get into what I'm saying here. But they just need a couple reasons to go out and fucking murder people. Excuse me, I hope we're past 5 minutes here, otherwise YouTube ain't gonna like that swearing thing. So anyways, apologies for getting into the garbage so soon. I would love for most of America to be peaceful and come around, and we could all be one giant community. Again, well, not again, because whenever somebody says again, and they haven't said their little statement, I have to assume that they mention it off camera. but it's certainly an overused term these days, so I'm going to try my best not to use it willy-nilly. But what I meant to say was you can, I don't know, we could be a community as America, and it would be great if we were the ones that didn't so much take care of our citizens, but it fosters innovation and I don't know, progress in that light. Definitely not going to try and sound too smart on, this thing. I'd love to have a silly time at some point. A lot going on in the world of comedy, but we'll talk about that later if I remember. What else do we have? A couple of things I wanted to mention, and they're in my notes, but I'm going to try and remember. Oh, last week, something to do with my hands here. Last week, I'm just raveling. I keep trying to light this cigarette and haven't gotten to it yet. So what was I saying? Last week, let's do this cigarette, please. I'll remember. Again, celebrating one view. How wonderful is that? I can actually imagine that maybe somebody will come back, if it's not a robot, watch something else, maybe if I do an hour and a half or an hour again. I would never do that to you. Right now, I'm just trying to get a schedule going and a certain amount of shows in the can, if I could use that phrase correctly this time, where I'm acknowledged by YouTube, which is possibly the reason why this one viewer saw it. So that I could be broadcast on a, wider scale. I don't believe in cigarettes. It's sort of a perk, if I'm honest. I don't actually, it's never talked about, so maybe we should discuss it, but the impact on your lungs, you see the photos, your lungs go from pretty pink all the way to tarred and black in a short amount of time, right? I don't really remember, but your body seems to be able to handle, some people, cigarettes for a really long time, even if you smoke a pack a day. So I don't want to pretend that they're not dangerous. They're certainly the worst, but compared to alcohol, I mean, when you talk about sudden deaths, you do all the statistics, I don't know which is worse. I imagine it's cigarettes. I have seen the billboard driving through maybe what is Santa Monica, where they're counting the cigarette deaths per year. I've seen the billboard, and that ticker ticks throughout the year. I haven't seen it recently, actually. I wonder why that is. Maybe they took it down. But the death by tobacco numbers are super high. So it's just a celebration for the week. I'm trying to use any excuse I can. I'm trying to really just give the cigarettes back to people that have loaned them to me. And by that I mean one person. But I haven't seen her in a little bit now. It's probably been a week or so. And I've just been smoking them all down. For better or for worse. Without looking at my notes, we covered my attire. We covered, and I'm not sure, have we covered what we were just talking about enough? I know we did what's in the news a little bit, but I'm going to look at my notes because I don't want this to even have one moment of boring for you. The viewer, that's right, I remember, because I was going to get to what's written down in my note here. Yeah, it's a good thing that that viewer came from earlier than 7 days ago, because last week and on the same, how do you say, the same note that I mentioned earlier about we'll get to some stuff later. Sorry to sound so confusing to you guys. I apologize. Just trying to keep my train of thought here. But this viewer happened before I came out with the episode, which was last week, which was I would love to give away a prize to anybody that even views the video. Now, I said we should probably come up with a game last week, but what I was meant to say, what I wanted to say was anybody who even watches this show can have my car. I'll give them a car for free if they want it. So there really shouldn't have been thinking about coming up with a game at all in that case. I hope you guys can't see the smoke. I forgot to really look at that during editing last week. There's smoke all up in the camera, in my face here. Makes my room smell atrocious. But luckily, this view, I came up with, I don't know, it doesn't matter. The point just being, wow, can't believe the coincidence. And how crazy is that? I've since let go of the car, donated it to, we're all careful about who we donate to, right? Or semi-careful. I know that every dollar I spend is voting for something, right? My shampoo is shampoo you can also use on horses, not tested on animals. That should be a good thing, even though it sounds backwards. And you can see some of my product up there. If you were to zoom in, I suppose, or if you have a big enough screen. But I'd rather that stuff be out of focus. Yeah, it'd be nice to have an upgraded camera one day. And maybe work on the background. But anyway, so the car was given to PBS. And that's that donation. Hopefully they get some money out of it because it ended up needing or having, somebody made an executive decision, even if it was online, per the form, because of the form I filled out, that it was going to go to a junkyard. And I know all about junkyards, so you can't trick me. Nobody's going to be driving this thing in the future, which is probably for the better, because 228 accounted for miles is plenty. And the engine was starting to just, it wouldn't be a car that you drive anywhere where there's extreme temperatures. I can say that. So yeah, let's, for the sake of the show being, keeping your ears or eyes or both tuned in, let's move on now. And I don't know, well, I know what I want to say. Before we wrap up here, I'd love to, I'm getting giddy knowing that we'll close the show soon. I don't know. Maybe it's because I have to maybe it's because I listened to the last episode and noticed how monotone and drab or dull I sounded that week, thanks to not working, that I just throw a bunch of energy at you and wrap it up quickly, that I'm smiling, even mentioning wrapping up the show. But I really don't want to wrap up. I love, as you can see, I bought a new shirt. I love doing this. You could say that my rotating wardrobe would be directly connected to how much I love whoever may view this, right? So, or listen to. So, but I need a reason to get out of here. And I would like to, instead of just bouncing so quickly, which is actually something I'd like to try, give you a heads up that we're starting to think about wrapping up. Sort of getting better at talking publicly, I noticed. I can string sentences together now. I feel like I've mostly said everything that needs to be said. Oh, besides one thing. And that's what I was getting at. So, without looking at my notes, and so far this week I'm doing so good, because I wanted to talk about all this stuff again before we go, but maybe we'll do a bonus 10 minutes or something like that, whatever hopefully comes up, possibly. But I busted my ass this week. I mentioned that earlier, and then talk to family a little bit. It's a little bit sensitive to talk about family and stuff. I love you so freaking much, whether you do or don't talk about the people that are close to you in your life publicly. I still love you dearly. It's on a case-by-case basis, whether you want to do that or not. In my case, it probably makes the wrong people, the wrong people jealous, or maybe it builds resentment in some people if I talk about it. But after busting my ass, at least for a couple or several days or a few days, talk to family, and that's revitalizing. That's always nice. It's nice to capture that feeling and hold on to it in the moment, or let it sink in and appreciate it while you're in the moment. So talk to family a little bit, and that was nice. Where was I going with that? Oh, had to kind of tell them. You could say that my family is like a telephone wire, or the game of telephone, where I feel like when I'm talking to them, I'm broadcasting to the rest of my family. So that's sort of where I stand with my close personals. But my point was, I'll just fast forward because I don't really know how these two have anything to do with each other. But, had to tell them that I kind of do a little something on social media. I show my face is essentially what I said, or maybe show my voice and my face is essentially what was communicated, and they get the point. They even guessed what platform I might be on, sort of a thing. And my only thing is now, hopefully I don't go into my views and I see a lot more views this week. Hopefully it remains the same and nobody has found me out that way. I love having one view and one subscriber, and I'm already starting to think maybe it would be better if I didn't have any. It's like you go to Baskin Robbins, you got 32 choices, or 31, excuse me. Do you really need more than 11? But without bothering you or them or anybody, essentially what I mean is you being at the moment my, phantom viewer, if you could call them that, or just me talking to myself again. So without bothering myself, at least, I did have somebody tell me at one point that I should start a show. So if that's my main inspiration, it only took one person. I was like, thank you. Made sure to thank them. And I've gotten on it ever since. So here I am in my lonely ass lifestyle, plugging in. And so we already talked about getting by when you're all by yourself. Self-sees. But yeah, so it was very kind of them to say this. I believe the person is a little bit younger than me. Not by much, and therefore, in the same gender or sex, we still use both those words however you say, right? It was very nice of him to say, and I've been doing it ever since. Glad to have 20 plus shows out, even if I possibly could be oversharing, possibly not. It helps me in the moment. Until the bar's open, I don't really have, something to weigh it against anyway. I promise not. That was the second time I feel like I forced out a laugh. I promise not to do it again. I apologize. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. So yeah, where do we go from here? And then I wanted it, so that was nice. Again, hopefully I don't have a little more views. That would mean that this person found out, where this person being one of my members of the family found out that I do this and what have you, even though it's easy to search for me on here. It's easy to find me. You already know my /Braden Young YouTube link, because I've mentioned it before. If you've seen previous episodes, if I'm talking to that one view that I got /viewer, let's look at my notes, okay? It's probably time, and then if there's nothing there, let's get out of here. I should probably keep you posted on how much toxins I have in my bloodstream. This week it was just a lot of Coca-Cola, 25% of this cup, or maybe 30% is cinnamon whiskey. I hate getting too drunk because then it affects my work schedule, but I will have a little bit more before we wrap up here. Let's go to the notes. Yes, I just wanted to update you from last week's show on whether I've reached out to anybody, and I haven't. So mostly what the theme is of this guy is, are you able to survive by yourself? And I want to be living proof, sort of inspiration, if you will, that we can all do it. The internet is alive. But the reality is I'm old-fashioned, as you are. Don't argue with me. As you are. Don't argue with me. If you're viewing this, the guy who does a show with Jim Norton on satellite radio, Sam Roberts, does a Friday night show. And I think he openly acknowledges that if you got nothing to do on a Friday night, well, at least you could tune in here. And he does topics about the news and stuff. I haven't necessarily been keeping up so much, but it's a fine and decent show. And you're certainly posted with what's going on. But yeah, so I'm not sure it really is simulating real life, is all I mean. Okay, before we get out of here again, and I do kind of want to talk about what's happening in the comedy world. Chris D'Elia is back and posting podcasts or YouTube videos, up on his page. And I think it's interesting, something to talk about. This is good rhetoric for me if I want to just be off the cuff and talk about something. My opinion on Chris D'Elia and Chris D'Elia coming back at this moment of time, this juncture, I think it's fair. I mean, I think it's fine. I mean, he's going through a lawsuit. I love to keep us, my most, my main interest, aside from everything you see that I'm doing here, is probably, it's not comedy related. So when I say what's happening in comedy, it's not comedy related. It's very much what we're all hiding or trying to hide our best if we're not blatantly and openly talking about it. Free speech. It's very much that. I'll always mention, if I can, or try and make a joke when I feel like my speech is limited. It's not a white guy thing. It's just a American thing, right? And you might even say British thing, because I know people like Ricky Gervais has mentioned that, you know, you're able to have free speech in his country as well, right? I know he lives in like Hampstead or something like that. I don't even know, but I don't know what town he's in, but it's England. And when it comes to people that have, let's just say, gotten embarrassed socially and they're public figures coming back, I care about these comedians because they're on the front lines of free speech. A quote from Ricky Gervais again. So I do care. You know, I see the, not to just ditch all my potential female audience, and hopefully that viewer was female, but not to leave them in the dust or leave them behind or make them in any way, make us, we're all girls here, it's just deep down. I was thinking about a joke just now and I hesitated on saying it, but I tuck my hand between my legs if I'm, I don't know, what is it? It's a nervous quirk or something while I'm doing the show, and my hands are they're outside my pants, but they're definitely in contact with the softer parts of my body. So when I mention females, I should probably go like so. For you audio listeners, I showed my hands to the camera. But anyway, I have a place in my heart for people that have, let's say, gone a little overboard, even if it just means that they've done some embarrassing things. They can come back whenever they feel they're ready. I noticed Chris D'Elia is talking a lot about his child on his first podcast back. That may be a tactic. That may be just naturally that might be, but it might not be. It might be naturally what he thinks about. It might be a shield, or it might be that shield that he puts between, let's just say, his female base and his face on the other end of the camera. But, oh boy, we're running a little long here. But either way, good for him if he feels brave enough, or that he's, let's say, repented in his own mind, if he feels like free of guilt in any way, or enough so that he could be out there publicly again and get back on the horse and grab his own career by the horns, then so be it. I want to be the loudest if I can possibly be when it comes to things like this. We have a gun problem. We have not a directly related gun problem where people are, young and old, are able to access guns, whether it be legally or not, doesn't even matter here. But there are bigger problems we can certainly tackle besides, what is that? Amendment 2 or something like that. Now you're finding out how little I really care about these topics. But the Second Amendment, there you go, I had that right, in the Constitution, free speech is certainly more important. And if you want to deal with, I don't know if they're in order of importance even. That's me being transparent there. But we can certainly deal with death before we tackle the issues of he said, she said, or he did, she did stuff, right? That's enough for one show. By that I mean, I think we've talked plenty. I don't even plan on finishing this. I hate to leave this much out of my bloodstream while not on camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chug it and then I'm going to say goodbye. If that's cool with all of us. Thanks for hanging in with us. If you're a fan and you liked, or if you like it and you're thinking about being a fanatic but you only want to be a fan, please hit the share button. Or hit the, what, we have other buttons. Just punch a bunch of buttons if you want. You could smash that dislike button, whatever you prefer. Leave a nasty comment or leave a neutral comment. That's what I would prefer. But add it to your playlist. Just add it to a playlist. That's what I really want. I want anybody who views these to please add it to their playlist. That would be engagements, I believe. And good enough for me. Let's see if I can handle this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cheers to that one viewer that viewed me once. Totally ignoring the person who left the comment. That could have been a robot for sure. Because it was spam. Upon further research. Shouldn't have even looked at it. Here we go. Cheers. Cheers. Eye contact being necessary. Okay. Thanks again. Let's get out of here. I'll edit while I'm drunk. You've been great. Yeah. Next week I'll try and wrap it up quickly. How about that? Okay? Thanks for hanging in with us. Stay sharp. Stay safe. Stay cool. Stay legit. Whatever. Right? I love you back if you love me. Okay. Without doing the peace sign this time. Toodles.